Hey, what's going on, everyone? So today we are talking about Lightroom. So this past week, Adobe has actually released a new update to Lightroom, both CC as well as Classic, which brings in some new, pretty significant features, in my opinion. Now, if you remember, the last big update that we got for Lightroom from Adobe added AI masking for like subject and skies, which was huge. In my opinion, that was one of the biggest and best updates we've gotten to Lightroom ever since I started using it 6 or 7 years ago. And then this week, we're getting another new, fairly significant upgrade, which again involves masking as well as a lot of preset changes. So with that being said, I've been playing with it for a few days now, kind of getting a feel for what's new, what's different. And so in this video, I'm just gonna kind of give you a rundown of what's new, what's changed, and so that way you can jump right into Lightroom and start taking advantage of all these new features. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump on over to the computer and let's get going. All right, so here we are. We have Adobe's website open, at least their blog anyway. I'm gonna leave a link to this website down below, this blog post from Adobe, which walks you through all the changes in a lot of detail. So if you want to read this and check it out for yourself, you can. Again, I'll link to it down in the description. But yeah, let's just kind of go through here. We'll kind of go through these one at a time. So the very first new feature that they've added to Lightroom is really, and also keep in mind too, some of these are going to apply mostly to just Lightroom CC, kind of the online version or the mobile version of Lightroom, and then there's gonna be some that apply to both that as well as Lightroom Classic. So just keep that in mind. So when you see here Lightroom Mac Win, that's essentially just gonna be the Lightroom CC app. So anyways, on the Lightroom CC app, we now have video editing capabilities, which is kind of interesting, kind of different. Usually you don't really think of using Lightroom for editing video from like a color standpoint. But nonetheless, here we go. We are in Lightroom CC, and you can see I've got a video clip pulled up here. Nothing special, nothing crazy, but we're just to kind of get the point across. So if you go up here to the upper right-hand corner, it hit the little edit section, and yeah, sure enough, you can actually start editing video. So you can start pushing and pulling exposure, contrast, shadows, blacks, all that stuff. You don't get access to the point curve. You can't use that on video, but you do have quite a bit of control for editing your video. So maybe if you do a lot of mobile content, a lot of stuff for social media, TikTok, whatever, this might be helpful for you if you use Lightroom CC a lot. Something else you can also do is you can actually go up to your presets, and if you take a preset and click on it, you can actually apply your own preset that you normally use for your photos to your image. Now this right here actually looks pretty bad. One thing I noticed is that if you have grain built into your preset, it does not work very well for your videos. So if it looks like that, or if it looks kind of crummy, I would suggest maybe just kind of going in here and making sure you don't have any grain turned on, because it does make the video look pretty bad. But nonetheless, yeah, you can apply your presets that you use for your photos and then, continue to edit it. And the whole idea there is to kind of make, make things kind of cohesive in terms of your photo and your video editing. So yeah, anyway, so you can now edit videos in Lightroom CC. So that's kind of cool. All right, so heading back, we covered video. So now we kind of get into presets. There's a lot of changes to presets. One of the first one being something that's actually pretty cool and pretty unique. I'm gonna pop back over to Lightroom Classic because honestly, this is what I use like 90% of the time. Well, actually, I take that back, probably not. I've started using Lightroom CC more on my laptop, but nonetheless, I'm popping over here. So if you remember a long time ago, maybe like 2 or 3 years ago, Adobe did some big changes to profiles. So I click on the profile section over here and I come down, and if I choose, I think some of these artistic ones, if you were to click on that, you get this amount slider that's up here on the right-hand side. So you can kind of control the intensity of the profile. So now what we're getting is actually something that's gonna be very, very similar to that. So let me kind of pop back over to more of a neutral profile. Let me close that. Now, if I go back over here to the left-hand side of Lightroom, and if I go ahead and I choose one of my presets, let's say if I do EMX V2, that's been a favorite of mine lately. So if I click on that, you'll notice now up in the upper right-hand corner, or left-hand corner rather, you now get a slider for presets. So now you can kind of control the intensity of those presets that you have. So maybe you have a preset that you've gotten from somewhere, for maybe it's one that you've made for yourself, and maybe sometimes you find it's just a little bit too intense. If that's the case, you can now use the slider and kind of take the edge off it a little bit, or maybe you want to make it a little bit more intense. But yeah, it's kind of a cool feature, have a little bit more control over how intensely your presets get applied to your images. And so yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. Okay, popping back over to Lightroom, or to the blog, let's go through here. So we talked about the slider. Okay, more presets, adaptive presets, premium presets. Let's kind of group these all together. So first of all, these are available both on Lightroom Classic as well as Lightroom CC, and it looks like also Adobe Camera Raw as well. So that's all kind of cool and well. But again, if we go back here, so let's talk about that. So when you open up Lightroom and you update it to the new version, you're now going to get some more kind of premium presets. So this is something, again, that Adobe has started doing maybe a couple of years ago. Lightroom has always come with some level of kind of built-in presets, but back in the day, they're pretty limited, and quite frankly, they're pretty bad. But recently, Adobe has been doing more of the premium presets, and this go around with this update, we get a few more. So when you open it up, you'll see that you now get a black and white portrait setup of presets. You now get edgy portrait presets, group portrait presets, as well as some concert-based ones, as well as now some creative video ones. And that kind of goes along with that video editing that you can do in Lightroom CC. But you do get some more preset options that are built in here. I've already kind of gone through and played with some of these. Some of the black and white ones are pretty good. Some of these others, like the portrait ones, the concerts, the creative video, not really my cup of tea. Still probably not something that I'm personally going to use. I've got my own presets that I've developed over the years that I tend to use, for pretty much everything. But nonetheless, potentially a good point to go if you're just getting started. You can kind of play around with those, or maybe if you're looking to change up your style, could be a good kind of starting point for you. But nonetheless, new presets there. Now, where things get really interesting is these new adaptive presets that Adobe has added. So this is where things start to get tied into the kind of the range or the masking, the AI masking. So let's see, let's go over to an image here that has a sky built into it, or not built into it, but just in the image. You know what I mean? Okay, so if we go over here to the left-hand side, we've got adaptive sky. So let's go ahead and expand that, and let's go ahead and hover over. Well, actually, before we do that, let's do a couple other things first. Let's do EMXV3. I'm gonna go ahead and white balance this, make it a little bit warmer. I'm gonna go up here, level it off a little bit, just to make it a little bit more like I was actually editing this for an actual wedding, right? Okay, cool. So that's pretty good. But now we've got this image that is looking, pretty good, but the sky is a little bit washed out. You can kind of see the clouds in here. There's a little bit of detail, but the sky is it's a little boring, right? So now if I wanted to, what I normally would do is just go up here to my masking section, and then I could do select sky, and then that would auto detect the sky. And then I could go in here and apply some edits, like maybe bringing down the exposure, bringing up the clarity, bringing up dehaze a little bit, and that can maybe make the sky pop a little bit more. So I could do that way previously, but now what we can do is we can go over here to these adaptive presets. And if I hover over them, it's going to combine traditional presets with the AI masking. So you can see what it did right there. I hovered over blue drama, and it automatically created a mask for the sky and applied a preset to kind of bring in a little bit more detail and color into the sky. If I go and hover over dark drama, you see it gets a little bit darker. We've got neon tropics, which kind of gives it more of a muted teal look. We got some storm clouds, we got some sunrises, we got some sunsets going on. So all sorts of cool little built-in sky adaptive presets, which is really neat. So I'm gonna go ahead and click on blue drama. And once I do that, it's going to go ahead and do two things. It's going to create that sky mask, and it's also going to apply some edits to it. And then just like any other mask that you would create, you can go up here and you'll see that it's already been created. And if we hover over the mask, you can see it's found our sky and it's applied those edits only to the sky. Pretty cool, pretty neat. And then just like any other mask, if I go ahead and click on that, we can see all the edits that were automatically applied. And if I wanted to change things, I certainly can. So let's say I wanted to make that a little bit more intense. I could bring the exposure down and just make that sky a little bit darker and bring in a little bit more detail. So really cool, really neat, and a fast way to be able to kind of get some use those AI features like the sky and the subject detect. So pretty cool stuff there. But the changes really don't end there either. So in the past, if we wanted to say take this image and this preset and all these settings, and if I wanted to copy them over from one image to another, I absolutely could. I could go in here and just do Command C, copy, make sure I've got masking selected, and then copy those settings, and then I could click on the next image and do Command V and paste, and it would go ahead and paste those settings. But what would happen in the past is the mask wouldn't quite align because these two images are slightly different. They're just shifted around a little bit, right? So they're not exactly on top of each other. Camera shifted, background shifted. You get the idea, right? Well, what happens now is actually the software will automatically detect where the sky is. So you don't have to kind of go up into your mask, and you don't have to like click on it and update mask. It just automatically does it for you, which makes it so much easier and so much quicker to kind of batch edit and just edit really quickly. And again, so not only can you copy and paste that way, but again, if you have a string of images like this, you could also just synchronize them as well. So I've got this one selected, shift click all these images, go down here, hit sync, make sure I've got my masking turned on, hit synchronize, and then it will go ahead and apply, everything, all of my preset, it'll apply the sky mask and all the changes there to all those images. It'll automatically detect it. And you can see right here in this little pop-up, it's saying that your settings are being synced, but updating AI mask may take some time. It does take a little bit longer than a typical sync would, but it doesn't take that much time. And there you go, it's already done. And now you can see in the bottom, my thumbnails have all updated. And now every single one of these images has the same setting, the same mask, and it's just been applied to each image, and the software has automatically updated the mask for each new image. So my opinion, that is freaking huge, because if you're like me and you photograph weddings, this will save you so much freaking time having these masks just automatically update. Because that was one of the biggest draws to me using masks in the past, is sometimes I just wouldn't use them because I knew that I would have to try to sync them across 7 or 8 or 10 or 20 images, and I didn't want to have to do that. But now with the way this is set up, it actually makes it super easy. And again, this is another huge plus from Adobe. I don't often give them much praise, but I have to say this is a really cool update. Okay, now before I forget, we talked about skies, but we also get subject select as well. So in here, again, as you might expect, if you go to adaptive subject, you can then hover over this and then it'll automatically detect the subject. And then you've got some presets you can choose here as well. So this one's pop, just kind of brightens them up a little bit. You can go to warm pop, you can go to soft, and then you've got a cool soft, the vibrant, and then there's glow. The glow is a little bit ridiculous. I have not found anything that the glow works well on, but nonetheless, again, same thing as before. Previously, if you wanted to create a mask for the couple, you could go in here and do the create a new mask and then do select subject. But this just makes it a little bit quicker. And I think the basic presets they got in here, particularly pop, is going to be probably one that a lot of people use. So again, really cool feature, and just didn't want to forget about mentioning that one. So also worth noting really quick is if you actually hop back over to Lightroom CC, let me open up an actual image. I've got the same collection synced over here. So let me open up an actual image, and then same thing on this side. So they've actually updated Lightroom CC to include a lot more that Lightroom Classic has. So basically making the two apps a little bit more comparable, bringing in some features that were only on Lightroom Classic over to CC, including those adaptive masks. So again, select subject, select sky. That's in there now, as well as if you go into the healing tool, you've now got red eye reduction that's built into Lightroom CC. So a few other things there as well. And then again, same thing, if you go into presets and you want to apply a preset, you can click on that, and then you do get that amount slider in Lightroom CC as well. So if you primarily use Lightroom CC, you don't have to feel left out. We do have, Adobe did provide some of those features for you as well. So that's kind of neat. Okay, let's hop back onto the blog. So we talked about adaptive presets. We talked about premium presets. We talked about the red eye removal tool. Some of that stuff's been carried over. There's also a compare tool. Obviously, that's been built into Lightroom Classic for a long time, but that's now built into Lightroom CC as well. So if you want to compare images, you can do that. It's just in the bottom left-hand corner. I'm not going to talk too much about that because I think it's pretty straightforward. Community search. So this is something that I really have never played around with, and that is the Discover section within Lightroom CC. So let's bring up that panel. If you go to Discover, click on that Discover button. So something that's kind of neat that's in here now. Try my own, leave me alone. So something that's kind of neat in here is you can actually, if you click on the Discover, it'll actually show you a bunch of basically presets that people have made available for you to try out for yourself. So let's say you like this one a lot. Well, first of all, if you're in this section, what's kind of neat is you can just kind of hover over an image and go back and forth on it, and it'll kind of show you the before and after. So same thing over here. And if you like any of these presets, you can actually go ahead and save it as a preset directly in a Lightroom CC. So that's kind of neat. And there's also a remix. Yeah, I haven't really gotten too much into that, but there's this Discover section, which is kind of neat. And then apparently they've made some changes to the search tool up here to make it easier to find things. Again, this isn't something I have a lot of experience with, but that's another change that they've added. Okay, heading back. Here's the blog. We talked about community search, remixes. We kind of touched on very, very briefly. That's not something that I use a whole lot. And then as we get down here in the bottom, we talked about batch, copy, paste, AI masks, mask group invert. So yeah, so some neat stuff, some other tools that they've brought over into Lightroom CC as well, and then just some general kind of performance and bug fixes. So that kind of wraps up all the changes to Lightroom. But again, I think this is another really big update. Again, going back, like I mentioned at the very beginning of this, these AI subject detect and sky select, detect things. These were massive for me. I know a lot of people have really, you've really been enjoying using them. They're basically like magic. It's amazing how well that it works. And so now that they have updating automatically from image to image, I think that's super cool. So yeah, anyways, that's really pretty much it for the updates. All right, so that's really it. Those are the main features of this new version of Lightroom. Again, I feel like it's been another pretty significant update, especially with the AI masking. Everything that Adobe is doing with that, I've absolutely been loving. It's been a great new feature built into Lightroom, and I'm glad to see that they've made it even better. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this new update as well. Hopefully you find it useful. Hopefully you found this video useful. If you did, do me a favor, give it a thumbs up. And but other than that, that's going to be it for this one. So until next time, stay safe, keep shooting, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.